Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse Wieland. I'm the Associate Director at the Office of National Fellowships here at Florida State. And we have the distinct pleasure today to be hosting Alex Miles. And so I'm going to read his brief introduction and then let him take things over to talk about the Marshall Scholarship. And so Alexander Miles, he's the head of public affairs and politics at the British Consulate General in Miami, where he represents the government of the United Kingdom in Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, specifically focusing on political analysis, media management, crisis communications, and project development. Alex holds a bachelor's degree from Clemson University, where he majored in political science and minored in Spanish literature. And so, Alex, thank you so much for being here. We're really looking forward to hearing about the Marshall Scholarship. And so take it away.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity, and to yourself and also to the whole University of Florida State. It's really been a pleasure. And so today, what I'm going to be doing is talking a little bit about the Marshall Scholarship. I'm also going to try and highlight general opportunities and benefits about studying in the United Kingdom with or without the Marshall Scholarship. But for the purpose of today, my presentation will be on the Marshall Scholarship itself. A little bit about myself and the work of the British government here in Florida. So we're part of a number of consulates throughout the United States that report directly into the British Embassy in Washington, D.C. The purpose of our consulates are basically to function as mini embassies, given the size of the United States and population. And what we seek to do is to support British nationals here in the United States in business, and we also seek to better link the United States and United Kingdom culturally, as well as diplomatically. And so the Marshall Scholarship is an extension of the work that we do across the United States. In Miami specifically, we oversee the whole state of Florida for the British government, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. And we also work in tandem with the other consulates in the embassy, as I mentioned earlier. And so that's a little bit about what we do. And the British government, as I'll explain in a little bit, works to support the Marshall Scholarship in terms of getting awareness out and helping to sift applications. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start the slide. And also, if anyone has any questions after the presentation, there will be a time for questions, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. So thank you all again for joining, and please feel free to ask questions if you have any during the presentation, and they'll be answered afterwards. So let me share my screen here. Just a second. Can you see now? This perfect, excellent. So I'll be speaking today about the Marshall Scholarships, specifically preparing those who are participating currently or will watch us later on the 2025 selection cycle. This is a great time to learn a little bit about this scholarship, as if you are interested in it, you will have a good amount of time to prepare an application for the Marshall Scholarship. So a little bit about the Marshall Scholarship. Who are Marshall Scholars? So one of the misconceptions about the scholarship that I've heard by engaging students and others is that folks are looking for a future U.S. president or a CEO, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Marshall Scholars come from all walks of life. They're advocates and activists. They're people who are passionate about issues and making the world a better place. They're soldiers. Military service academies have since 1955 combined to send more Marshall Scholars to the UK than any other public institutions. They're also innovators. Many of our Marshall Scholars are aspiring innovators and entrepreneurs. pushing forward big ideas that push the boundaries of innovation. Just an example of that is Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, actually was a successful Marshall Scholar, just to give you an idea when we talk about innovation. They're also community leaders. Many of our marshals are civically engaged and community leaders who come to the UK to learn the tools that they need to help their communities. They're also musicians, filmmakers, artists, and authors who come to the UK for the opportunity to explore the humanities and their creative potential. And most importantly, Marshall Scholars are a diverse community that's inclusive of people from all academic, socioeconomic, cultural, and geographical backgrounds. So really, this opportunity, if you have what it takes, no matter what your line of study, the Marshall Scholarship would be an amazing scholarship for you to consider. So a little bit about the history. The Marshall Scholarship was established in 1953 by an act of the British Parliament as a thank you for economic aid under the Marshall Plan. This was specifically in post-war Europe. After the Second World War, the UK was bombed heavily by Nazi Germany, and the United States, through the Marshall Plan, actually helped to contribute not only to the UK but to Europe, but more specifically, most of that aid went to the UK to help rebuild. And so the British government was thinking of different ways to give back, to say thank you, in other words. And there were a number of things at that time considered, giving an original copy of Magna Carta, or a pair of chandeliers that belonged to a former British royal to the White House that was being refurbished. But it all ended up happening that the folks at the Foreign Office, the British version of the State Department, whom I work for, decided that it was best to think about something long term, and that a scholarship would be best placed to help build those relationships through the years to come, and just continue to say thank you in that way. So basically, the scholarship was established to enable intellectually distinguished Americans, young Americans, to study in the UK and bring both countries closer together. And the first class was in 1954. It consisted of 12 students, including 4 women, making it the first co-educational scholarship in British history. So a little history it made in and of itself at its inception. So it's a little bit about the history. So now an important part is eligibility. So you must have graduated from your undergraduate institution after April 2023. And just one thing on that's not mentioned in the slide is that undergraduate institution must be in the United States. So if you were to go to, I don't know, McGill University in Canada and apply, you would not be eligible. Obviously, Florida State is eligible. It's in the United States. So we're looking for folks who have graduated from FSU or their undergraduate institution after April 2023. You must hold your first undergraduate degree from an accredited 4-year institution like FSU by September 2025. You must be a U.S. citizen, and I want to stress that this scholarship is only open to U.S. citizens, not to U.S. residents. So I just wanted to highlight that bit because I've gotten that question a few times. You must hold an undergraduate GPA of 3.7 or higher at the time of application and graduation. And also, you must not have studied or hold a degree equivalent qualification from a UK university, GSCE or A levels taken at a school in the UK. Study abroad is acceptable and fine. So if you're planning on studying abroad in the UK, or you studied abroad in the UK previously, do not worry about that. That will not exclude you. So just another important thing to take into consideration. So the application regions. So the application regions are the areas where you can apply when you're preparing your scholarship from. You cannot apply from any application region. You have 2 choices: where your permanent home address is, and where your undergraduate institution is. So obviously, you could apply from the Atlanta region, as you can see on the map in orange, because everyone on this call, by and large, goes to Florida State University, so that would fall in the Atlanta region. If your home address is outside that orange area in the map, so outside the states of Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, the Carolinas, and Tennessee, let's say your home address is in Chicago or New York or California, you could also seek to apply from one of those areas. And so what that would mean is that you'd submit your application there, and if you were successful in getting an interview, you would seek to be interviewed at one of our consulates where you see the stars on the map, or our embassy. So Atlanta, Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Washington, D.C. at our embassy, New York City, and Boston. Apart from D.C., the other areas with stars are where we have consulates. Miami's not listed there because at the Miami consulate, we're solely focused on outreach. So we don't sift the applications in Miami. I just wanted to highlight that. There is no advantage or disadvantage to applying in one region or the other. It's simply a question of what's most comfortable for you and most convenient. And so if it's easier for you to get to the interview, somewhere else, that's, apply from the region, maybe where your home address is. Or if it's easier where you're going to school at Florida State, apply in the Atlanta region. It's really what makes most sense for yourselves. Moving on, the application components. So the application components here are the basic form and short answer, essays. So the essays would be a personal essay. So we would want to learn more about you, your motivations, and what drives you. There'd be a leadership essay, how you've demonstrated leadership. And then there'd also be an academic plan as part of that essay component, where you're going to set out what you hope to achieve and how you plan to achieve it. And just a side note there, what we're really looking for there is we're looking to see if the applicant is thinking ahead and forward thinking, and is going to be a good fit for this scholarship. And in the future, by looking at those essays, we hope to look into the future and see that person coming back to the United States and with a tremendous graduate education they received in the UK, and being able to do just great things in whatever their field of study is, and helping to support the UK-US relationship. Your transcripts will need to be submitted as part of your application, your university's endorsement. And your university is required to endorse you. I just wanted to stress that. And then 3 letters of recommendation. So there would be a preferred recommender, a general recommender who should have taught or supervised you, and a leadership recommender. 2 of these recommenders must be located in the United States. And then make sure the recommenders can speak well of you, your accomplishments, and your aspirations. Just like I mentioned with the essay, we're really interested in your aspirations and you being able to put that into words as well. I'll stop briefly in case, Jesse, if you have anything you'd like to add at all. If not, I'll happy to keep going on FSU's specifics there.
Yeah, I'm happy just to emphasize what I think is both the most challenging aspect of the application for many of our students over the years, but also I think what is the most beneficial, and that's what you're talking about with this plan, because so many of these postgraduate scholarships that we work with, your Marshall, your Rhodes, your Fulbrights, your Gates scholarships, all of these applications are asking, why do you need to study abroad in the UK? Why do you need to study at this institution? Where do you see yourself upon graduation? Where do you see yourself in that 5 to 10 years? I didn't know what I wanted to do upon graduation. I was not the stellar example of an undergraduate student, and so I'm asking my students to do what I was not capable of really doing when I was 21, 22. And so I know it is really difficult. I typically work with students who are far and away better than I was. but anyways, the point stands is that making this plan for yourself is really challenging. And that's why we have this presentation right now. That's why we do so much of our recruitment for these scholarships for most students, during their junior year. We're happy to work with seniors and recent alum, but we want to work with rising seniors over the summer. And Alex is going to get into the timeline in just a little bit, because we want you to start thinking about these questions early. But no, that's just a quick point, and Alex, I'll turn it back over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate that. So just moving on in terms of academic merit, and how that would fall in with your application. We're looking for evidence of strong and relevant academic background, knowledge of the proposed courses and supervisors, quality of programs of study, and quality and breadth of recommendations. So just really quickly on academic merit and relevant academic background, it would really help with your application here to be able to show whatever your course of study is, whatever your major is, and whatever you seek to study in the UK, that you're able to link it in certain ways with what you've done, and to be able to the best of your ability, kind of forecast for those who'll be looking at your application where you're going to be going in terms of your academic background, and how studying in the UK with your selected major and where you study in the UK is going to help further you professionally. That's really important. And I wanted to stress that there. The other component, there are three components here. So first is academic merit. Second is leadership potential. We're looking for candidates who demonstrate an ability to deliver results, who have strength of purpose, creativity, self-awareness, and demonstrate courage. So again, those are great things to kind of flesh out in your application, that leadership potential. And you can kind of put that in throughout the application. And I would think about these areas: academic merit, leadership potential, and I'll touch on in a second, ambassadorial potential. These are areas where, when you're getting your recommendations, when you're writing your essays, keep them in mind. Maybe have them written on a note card next to you as you're preparing, or if you're going to speak with one of your recommenders. Mention to them to really kind of bring out those areas: academic merit, leadership potential, and the third, ambassadorial potential, which is knowledge of UK-US relations, transferable extracurriculars, ability to engage others, and confidence and ability to seize opportunity. Now, let me be a little specific. When we talk about knowledge of UK-US relations, we're not necessarily looking for someone to have an exhaustive understanding of US-UK relations through history, but I would just say a general awareness of UK-US relations. Understand that the whole conception behind, and that's why I think I was good that we touch on the history a little bit behind this scholarship, was really to further UK-US relations and build the bonds between both the UK and the United States. And so if you can kind of insert that into your application and show that that you have an appreciation, it doesn't necessarily have to be a full, robust grasp, although that's always positive, but I would say an appreciation, and that you would work towards advancing UK-US relations in the future, in your line of study, whether it be drama or literature or business, law, what have you. That's something that is looked on favorably. And then the other thing, as part of the ambassadorial potential, we don't mean someone necessarily, being a diplomatic ambassador, but we're looking for someone to represent the United States and the United Kingdom. So kind of acting as a friend of the United Kingdom in the United States when they're coming back after receiving their graduate degree in the UK. And so what we're looking for there is, good interpersonal skills and ability to engage others. So that kind of all falls under that umbrella. So I'm just going to go back really quickly. So those three areas are, again, academic merit, leadership potential, and ambassadorial potential. So if you can work on bringing those out in your essays, talking with those folks who are going to recommend you to kind of insert some of those abilities that you have there, that would be very well received by those going through the application. So let me get into the to the route map here in terms of what the scholarship offers and can offer. So the traditional is option one. So this is a 1-year scholarship, 12 months master's taught or research, no extension. Taught more, it's more like the US system. So to take courses and complete an exam at the end. Research is a master's degree, and it's entirely based around a research project under the supervision of a faculty advisor in the UK. And then just an important bit I want to flag, master's programs that can be completed in less than 12 months in length are unfortunately not eligible for the scholarship. So if there's a master's degree that you're looking at, make sure that you know you can complete it within 12 months or more, not less, because that would make it you ineligible for the scholarship. And then option two is a 1-year master's at a same or different university, or 2-year master's, at least 2 years of PhD program. For either master's options, you can pursue taught or research. And then option three is 2 years with a possible 3rd-year extension. This could be done by completing a 1-year master's, starting a PhD in year 2, or a 2-year Marshall Scholarship, or upgrading from a 2 years research master's, or continuing 2 previous years of PhD. For an additional 3rd year following your 2 years research master's, 3rd-year funding is possible, but I want to stress it's not guaranteed, and students must apply during their 2nd year while they're in the UK. So obviously, some folks can do that, but you have to apply in your 2nd year if you're going to go for the 3rd year. And obviously that's less common, just given that it would be take longer to achieve. Now, going to the timeline, I would just mention, and if anyone wants to write this down or screenshot, please feel free to do so. So basically, late September, early October of this year, the deadline is for submitting a Marshall Scholarship application. Many schools have internal deadlines. So Jesse, would you mind letting those on the call know about those internal deadlines at Florida State?
Yeah, I would say most of our deadlines for any of our UK scholarships are going to be about mid to late August. And so, for example, this past year, we had deadlines before the first week of class even started. And so that really necessitates contacting us early, because we know our students are going to be studying abroad. They're going to be pursuing summer internships. They're going to be busy over the summer. And so we want to make sure that we can set a timeline with you, usually over the span of what can be 3 to 4 months, to where we are able to consistently and regularly check in. It doesn't need to be every week. Maybe that could be every 2 weeks, just to make sure that you're making progress. But then, yes, meet our campus deadline, late August, early September, because we do also have our campus interview process. And so we have campus committees for all of these postgraduate scholarships, where you will meet with FSU faculty, former scholars of many of these opportunities that work on campus, who will review your applications, review your rec letters, provide you feedback on your application, and choose which candidates we are going to endorse. And so all of that happens in early mid-September to then finalize your application by the time that Alex said, late September.
Perfect. Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate that. So after the application deadline, the next step would be by the end of October, there'd be reading and selection committees where they'd hold their shortlist meetings and will narrow the field of students to around 18 to 23 who will be invited to interview. So let's say someone applies from the Atlanta region where Florida State falls in. 18 to 23 folks will be invited to interview by the end of October. Then continuing down the timeline is the week of the 18th of November. This is where the selection committee conducts interviews with students. Students are often notified of the results within 1 to 2 days after the final interview. So if you go up to Atlanta, if you're applying from this region, you'll be notified within a day or two. So you don't have to wait too long after your interview to know if you were successful or not. And then the first week of December 2024, the British government announces the winners of the class, of the new class, of the 2025 class will be for this year. What we do on a local level at the consulate is if the scholars are in and around the Miami area and come to Miami, we open up the opportunity to have tea with the consul general. We also try to promote those scholars depending on where they're from. If they're from someplace in Florida or studied at FSU, for example, we would try to promote them on local media if they were fine with that, and our social media channels as well, which as long as I'm on the subject, if anyone would like to follow us, our consulate is active on social media, specifically on X at UK in Florida, that's Florida spelled out, and Instagram with the same handle. Also, the Marshall Scholarship also has social media as well. Just by a simple search on your social media channel of choice, you should be able to find the Marshall Scholarship there. Also, I would say it's been really beneficial to meet with some of these scholars after they've won the award and hear about their future plans. What I've noticed is they're very much forward thinkers, and they have a lot of ideas about how they can contribute once they come back to the United States, and how their UK degree will fit in with what they're trying to achieve. The other thing I just wanted to mention briefly, going back to the interview period, I said you'd be notified in 1 to 2 days after the interview if you're successful to be interviewed. By the point of the interview, and if you've made it that far, you'll probably already know the UK university that you want to study at, etc. And you've maybe even made contact with some professors or folks in the department that you would seek to study in at that UK university. I do know that if you're not successful in your application, some UK universities, given the folks that were selected to interview with their high academic merit and ambassadorial potential, etc., although they didn't get the Marshall Scholarship, these universities recognize the benefit of students who were just called to interview, might not have been successful. And so there have been occasions where UK universities have worked out their own internal scholarships for American students to come to their institution, even if they were not successful in the Marshall interview. So I just wanted to stress that. And I have heard from a number of folks on that. So without taking too much time there, I'll move ahead. So a little bit about interviews. So interviews are 30 minutes long at the local consulate. Obviously, as I said, from our region, it would be Atlanta, where you'd be going to interview. Don't worry about having to pay out of pocket to get to Atlanta. Travel costs are covered by the Marshall Commission, excluding international flights. So international flights are not covered. But if you're coming from abroad, talk to your university, as sometimes they cover costs of your travel. Again, I don't know, Jesse, at FSU, if that's ever done, but sometimes that's done by other universities from time to time.
Yeah, we've never had to, we've never made a student pay for a flight. Yeah, so we can find the funds, and we have paid for students to come from abroad to make these interviews in the past.
Wonderful. And then all members of the committee that will be interviewing you. They're American, and most are Marshall alumni, but it's not a requirement for someone to be on the committee to be a Marshall alumni. And most of them have been through this tough process before, so they'll know what you're going through, the nerves, etc. And then also another thing to mention is these folks represent all the thematic areas of expertise. They're covered by the committee members. So you're guaranteed that your first reader committee member is someone who works in your thematic field. So I don't know, let's say your major has to deal with science or the humanities. There'll be someone on the committee that will understand your course of study to a certain extent, and be able to to understand where you want to go with the Marshall Scholarship. So there's going to be understanding and sympathy for you during the interview process, and that's why I think it's important that there's that diversity on the committee. And then let's see here, and then just one quick thing. You will then get a second reader who will also look over your application to ensure multiple committee members have viewed it. And then the large regions that receive a higher number of applicants overall also employ reading committees, which do the first round of review of scholarships before shortlisting applications to the selection committee for interviews. So just wanted to mention that just for general information there. But let me just speak briefly to give you an idea of last year's class, the class of 2024. So looking back at last year's cycle, we have the number of folks from private universities selected. So research and liberal arts were about 43.14%. State and public universities about 19.61%. Ivy League 29.41%, and service academies. And so the other thing is, that's just to give you an idea where folks are applying from. Let me move on here. And then with these successful applicants, where are they looking to go in the UK? So a lot are choosing and have chosen Oxford and Cambridge at 52.94%, which makes sense to a certain extent, given that Oxford and Cambridge are so well known internationally. And then London universities, 21.57%. This most likely has to deal with, some prestigious universities in London, like the London School of Economics, among others, that folks are interested in. Obviously, the city of London itself. Other universities in England come in at about 15.69%. And then universities in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, the other portions of the United Kingdom, come in at 9.8%. I'm going to stop here just to speak a little bit about that, and just to say that, obviously when you're applying and based off your major, what you seek to achieve academically in the UK, select the best university for your major that has the strongest course of study for your major. I would highly not recommend selecting Oxford or Cambridge or University in London just based off the fact that that the university is well known. I think for the committee, it really helps for them to see that you're making a strong argument in terms of where you'd like to go academically and how you'll achieve. And so if there's a university outside of London, and that doesn't include Oxford and Cambridge, that has a very strong department in, let's say, geology, in this example, and you can make that case in your application, that's going to put you in a much better position. It's going to make you unique and stand out, because as you can see here, though it doesn't affect you in the area you apply and what region you apply to, it might, and it might in terms of what university you're applying at. So do apply to Oxford and Cambridge or London University if it makes good sense for the major you're going to pursue. If Oxford has the best department in English literature and that's your major, by all means, do not misread me. But if there are universities outside the London area and Oxford and Cambridge, do consider them. I think it really sets you apart, distinguishes you. In terms of your application. And there's some wonderful universities outside of those areas. Just some that come to mind. Scotland has some very historic and well-known universities. And just in the north of England, the University of Durham is very well known. I would say right after Oxford and Cambridge, Durham is considered kind of like the third elite university in the UK, and it has a history about as long as Oxford and Cambridge's. So I just wanted to highlight that in terms of thinking outside the box. But again, it all comes down to what your line of study is, and being able to make contact with these folks at these universities. So I will move on from there. And then just some tips about choosing a UK university. Obviously, this might seem straightforward, but do your research. Why you choose to apply for a university matters greatly to the selection committees. Conduct thorough research on the programs in your academic field to choose a school you believe will best support your academic and professional goals. Again, think about those three things I mentioned before: academic merit, leadership potential, ambassadorial potential when doing the research. Talk to professors in the UK. We have so many resources to speak internationally nowadays at free of cost. And UK universities, are home to world-leading institutions and researchers and professors, and you can get in touch with them to explore their line of their offerings, their course offerings, and you can work that into your application. So reach out to them when you're building your research plan. Consider universities, as I said before, outside of London, and Oxbridge is a term for Cambridge and Oxford. So kind of outside London universities and Oxford and Cambridge might position you in a better light academically, ideally, and based on your course of study, and also it will make you, I think, more appealing that you've done your research. If you're finding a university outside kind of the main Oxford and Cambridge and London, I think it's showing the selection committee, hey, this person is really looking outside the box here, and develop an academic plan that demonstrates in your application and to the selection committee how you plan to make the most of your time at the UK. And remember, you can apply anywhere, any UK university. So anywhere, even if you want to apply at Oxford and or Cambridge, you can select the university that best meets your future aspirations. Here, you can see some of the partnership schools, but by and large, every university in the UK, so England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland is open here. Just off the top of my head, I would imagine that outside of England, I would say Scotland would be the most heavily selected for Marshall Scholars, followed by Wales, followed by Northern Ireland. So if you're thinking about that, be sure to consider universities in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland as well when you're conducting your research. And obviously try to make contact with professors. If you can make contact with some UK professors and departments, and you can speak to them a little bit about your academic background and see how their course offerings will fit in, and how you're considering the Marshall Scholarship, they're going to be aware of the Marshall Scholarship, and they can help you, and they can signpost you and give you ideas to include in your application. So that's another bit that I did want to mention. Now, talking about the scholarship benefits, and this scholarship, the Marshall Scholarship, is an amazing benefit. It pays your full tuition for your graduate studies in the UK. It covers airfare to and from the United States, and it also covers your room and board at competitive rates, both for inside London and the rest of the UK. And it also covers a claimable allowance for your books, approved travel, travel between your place of residence and your graduate institution in the UK, costs of thesis preparation, and shipping your property to the UK and back from the UK to the US. And the other thing I would mention is the Marshall Commission will organize annual field trips. In the past, they've organized trips to the devolved countries of Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales, tours of Parliament. So this would be for yourself and other Marshall Scholars, even if they're not going to university in the UK. A visit to number 10 Downing Street, where the British Prime Minister resides, so the British equivalent of the White House. These type of activities, take place frequently take place once a year. So that would be something just to further kind of introduce you to UK culture and whatnot. And it's a great way to connect with some other Marshall alumni who might not be at your same academic institution in the UK, but they were part of your class, the 2025 class. So just some resources, and please feel free to write this down. please visit marshallscholarship.org for more information on the Marshall Scholarship and requirements. This is the main website for the scholarship, and it's updated with the most up-to-date information, and it has resources there. Use the online course tool finder to research UK universities and programs for your application. That would be marshallscholarship.org/apply/course-search for that. And visit your university's fellowship and office to learn a little bit more. So obviously, folks like Jesse and others to learn how to prepare your application from an FSU perspective, and then follow at Marshall Scholar on X and Instagram, and UK and USA for our embassy, and UK in Florida. That's Florida spelled out for our consulate here in Miami. And please email if you have any questions, apps@marshallscholarship.org. So if you have any specific questions that I'm not able to answer in a little bit, please do email apps@marshallscholarship.org for help there. The last thing I would mention is the British Council is part of the British government. It works to promote British culture and the English language in non-English speaking countries, and British culture in English speaking countries. And they help to support the Marshall Scholarship. So if you run a quick Google search on the British Council, and you put in British Council study in UK, they have a great little resource on their website about studying in the UK in general, not just about the Marshall Scholarship, but you can look up different courses of study, and that can be very beneficial as you're preparing your application. Last but not least, you're going to see my information here, and you're going to see the information for others who lead on the Marshall Scholarship in the UK government in the United States. So I'm showing this just if you have any questions for myself. My email is alexander.miles@fcdo.gov.uk. I lead on outreach for the scholarship here in Florida, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have, although it probably is best for any particulars that I can't answer now to reach out to the email I gave previously in the last slide. With that being said, I'm going to open things up for questions and stop sharing right now. Let me see if I can find the button here. Stop the. Let me just go back to Zoom. Go. Perfect. And I think I'm back now.
Cool. Thank you, Alex. While people get their thoughts together, I do have a quick question.
Sure.
Back when you were discussing the study plans, and you talked about the 1-year plan, 2 years, and then, the 2 years with a possible third. So please tell me if this is a myth or if this is something to consider. But when we've worked with our students in the past, we've encouraged them, obviously, go with the plan that works best for you. But we've encouraged them to strongly consider the 2-year plan because we felt that made their applications a little bit more competitive at that next level. Would you say that's the case, or is it really just purely all about the case that you make for any of the plans?
I would say, Jesse, it's the latter. I have not heard that particularly, that the 2-year plan is the best. It could be. I just haven't heard it in my circles. But I would really say it's just on the application overall. If it makes a stronger case for that person to I'll just go with that earlier example. They're studying geology, and let's just say the University of Exeter in England has a very strong geological course offering, and it happens to be a year and it fits in that framework. Then I think it's just best to go with the 1 year, and obviously vice versa. If maybe it goes a little bit longer now, if there's 2 years, you could apply for the 2 year there. But I will follow up and ask in our future communication. Sure. If I hear it, I will flag that. I've written that down.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I think saw a question. I came up
Yeah.
on
We
a
do
few
have
questions.
one from Madison that asks, could the Marshall Scholarship include a JD, or is it only for master's degrees or PhDs?
That's a great question, one which I've never received. I would imagine it could include a JD. I don't see why it couldn't. I mean, the JD is basically a doctoral degree, and so I could see the Marshall Scholarship including a JD. I That would be a question that I'm more than happy to find out myself.
Mhm.
So if she would like to follow up with me on that, maybe send me an email, or if she'd prefer to follow up on that email I sent earlier, I will find an answer to that question. I would imagine so, but it would most likely fall outside that framework of the traditional 1 year, and include some more years, because obviously a JD takes more than a year to
Yeah,
complete.
my initial impression, and I would say I do need to look into this as well, is my initial impression would be that you need to look at maybe one of those masters or PhDs and then return to or transition into your law degree back in the US. But yes, I don't want to say no entirely, but that's my initial impression with that question. Uh,
Excellent.
and then Chloe asks, will applicants who have already recently completed a master's degree be considered? So could you have earned your domestic, I guess, a master's degree in the US, and then participate in another master's in the UK?
I think so. I think so. I Again, that's another one. That's a really good question, actually.
Mhm.
Let me write that down. So the question is basically, if you've completed a master's degree,
Mm-hmm.
can you do it again in the UK?
Mm-hmm. Because sometimes we have, or it's very common for students that I work with who are applying for Marshall and, like we said, the Fulbrights, the Rhodes, all of these programs in the United Kingdom, and concurrently apply for domestic programs. Because in many cases, so if I'm applying to graduate school, at Emory University, and then
Sure.
I hear that I've been selected for a Marshall Scholarship, I would say until I'm proven wrong, these domestic institutions are going to be more than happy to defer your enrollment so you can go and have this experience, earn this degree in the UK, and then transition into their program, assuming it's still relevant for what you're wanting to do. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So in terms of the masters, I, off the top of my head, I would say yes. I don't see why you couldn't. But I would double check that, though, because what's prohibitive in this scholarship is, if you've actually studied in the UK, which doesn't include studying abroad. If you have your undergraduate degree from a non-US university, if you're not a US citizen, if you don't meet the 3.7 GPA requirement. I have not seen or heard anything that says you're prohibited from pursuing another master's degree in the UK, because you still achieve all the aims and goals of the scholarship. If you meet those areas, you achieve all those aims and goals, you're coming back to the US, you have the ambassadorial potential, etc. In fact, I would say you're probably a stronger candidate with already that master's degree from a US institution, in my opinion. Um, so with those two questions on the JD and the masters, um, my email was listed earlier, alexander.miles@fcdo.gov.uk. Jesse, also feel free to put in the chat or in any follow
Oh,
up, because I'd like to help those two folks get answers to that. And that should not be an issue at all, because I myself want to know, as I continue to do this outreach and stuff, some of the answers to those questions, because those are both very good questions. They're excellent questions.
other
You're
questions
welcome.
for Alex today?
If there are no more questions, I'm happy just to say a little something just to close. And yeah, perfect.
Mhm.
So yeah, everyone on the call, please feel free to email me if you have any further questions, and then I'll work with my connections on the Marshall team and at our embassy to get answers. Because as I said, I'd like to know those answers myself as well. So yes, but if there are no more questions, I want to encourage everyone on this call or on this Zoom call, I should say, to look into the Marshall Scholarship, check out the Marshall Scholarship website, make sure to follow them on social media, and also think about studying in the UK in general. If you don't have necessarily the GPA or something to apply for a Marshall Scholarship, there are many great ways to study in the UK. And you can even look at institutions to study at in the UK, and there are other scholarships as well that you can consider. But the Marshall Scholarship is a tremendous scholarship. So many great people over the years have been successful Marshall Scholars. They've come back to the US to be such great advocates. I remember a member who was recently appointed to the US Supreme Court, when they were selected, they actually talked about their Marshall Scholarship and how it was formative in helping them as they pursued their legal career. So with all that being said, just a sincere thank you for everyone who took who shared with me about 45 minutes of your life today. I really do appreciate it. And I want to be here as a resource, and would love to see more applicants from Florida State. And any way I can help with that, more than happy to. So it's been a pleasure. Jesse, thank you. Thank you to the whole student body at Florida State, and looking forward to engaging with some of you offline via email. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Alex. It was a pleasure hosting you. And the last little bit from me is that if you're interested in the Marshall Scholarship, or you're interested about studying in the UK, more broadly speaking, for graduate school, we do have another workshop this coming Thursday, March 7th at 1 p.m. I posted the Zoom link in the chat, but we are also going to be meeting in HSF 3008 on campus, so feel free to join us in person. But Alex, thank you again for joining us. It was a pleasure hearing from you, and we're looking forward to getting this recruiting process started for this cycle. So
great. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Have a great day, everyone.